Carol, welcome to What If I Say Yes. How are you?
I am fine, and I'm delighted to be with you.
Good. I see Molly over there.
She's participating as well.
Yes. Okay, so let's begin with you telling the audience, who are you?
Sure. My name is Carol Hockett. I am an educator and a lecturer. I'm a community volunteer. I'm a lay speaker. Um, and I hope I'm a mentor as well.
You said a what speaker?
A
Lay
lay
speaker?
speaker.
What's that?
Mhm. Lay speaker is somebody who fills in for ministers.
Oh,
Who has classes and training, but not ordination.
okay. Interesting. Okay, so now tell the audience how is it that we know each other?
We know each other through our neighborhood, also our dear mutual friend, Victoria, and our wonderful dear community of dog walkers. So all of those things, and the wonderful project you did for Victoria.
Yes. So I don't actually live in your neighborhood, but I walk a dog that lives in your neighborhood. And yes, I ran into you, but also Victoria introduced us while you were walking Molly and I was walking Vinnick, I guess. Um, and yes, I recently did a project, a mini book for Victoria of a few friends who have dogs and
Mhm.
love Victoria. We have in common that we have dogs, we walk them, and that we love Victoria very much.
Absolutely.
Okay, Carol.
That was a good thing. Yes.
So tell us now, what was that moment in your life when you asked the question, what if I say yes? You said yes, and you did something. What was it?
Well, I will tell you, in late 2007, I was and still am attending a little Methodist church in Ithaca, very near the Botanic Gardens and the Wildflower Gardens, a sweet little Methodist church, tiny little place, half-time minister. And at one point, the minister said, "Would you fill in for me?" And of course, I thought, well, I never thought about that before in my life. I would, it just never occurred to me. I thought I'm not trained to do it. I'm not qualified to do it. I can't imagine doing it. But then I did think, well, what if I said yes? What if I just tried this one time? And
Mhm.
I did. And I will say it changed everything. That yes has changed many, many things over the next 15 years
Why
in
did
many ways.
Why did the minister choose you?
I don't know. I really don't know.
You never
There weren't that
asked?
many people. No, there weren't. I think he just thought I could do it, and
Mhm.
I don't think I thought I could. And just maybe sense there was something that needed to be explored, and I did. So that again, that yes led to part-time ministry at 5 different churches and 2 different nursing homes, all while working full time with another job.
Mhm.
It led to taking classes, and it led to things that I never would have guessed that I would have done or felt comfortable doing, being called to be with somebody as they're dying,
Mhm.
or asked to marry a couple, or asked to take care of one of my dearest friends' funerals. So those are things I felt I don't think I ever thought I would or could do. But also, as this has moved along, that yes has had a lot of ripples, many ripples. Um,
So at the
so, yeah, it's
beginning,
just that's led to so many other things.
okay, so when you were
Mhm.
asked to to do this, what were the main responsibilities? What is it that you had to do the first time?
Sure. The main responsibilities would be to write a sermon that you would deliver, and
Mhm.
also to create a service to say, all right, these are the hymns we're going to sing, and these are the prayers, and this is how we're going to shape it. And then the whole message will be some kind of sermon that you write and deliver and lead the service.
How
And
long
that
does
was,
it have to be?
oh, the whole service is probably an hour, and the sermon, is maybe 15 or 20 minutes.
Mhm.
So that was something I'd certainly not done before, and could not have imagined doing before that. But
Do you
that, yes,
remember what was? Oh, sorry.
oh, no, you go ahead.
We're gonna have this issue along the way because of our internet connections, but hopefully the message will come through.
Mhm.
So do you remember what you wanted to talk about on that first service?
I think that's a really good question. I think I've still got that one written down. It's been so long ago, and now it feels like, that wasn't my finest hour, but it was my first effort. And I think that was about. I think it was more about materialism, and that passage about you know that nothing that you can't take it with you, that idea of you really, nothing that you accumulate is really going to be something that you have forever. So I think that was the gist of it, but I'd have to find it, and then I'd be horrified thinking, oh, that wasn't very good. Hopefully they've gotten better as I've gone on.
And that was 2007.
It was late 2007, and then I think the first class I took was the next year in 2008. I thought,
What
okay,
what what kind of class? What were you studying?
these are all classes to hopefully improve how you do this. So classes in um, understanding how to write a sermon, classes in understanding how to lead prayers, classes in grief counseling, or storytelling, all kinds of things that hopefully would prepare you a little bit for what you're dealing with.
So now when you have to select, for example, the songs that go with that service, do you have like a catalog or where to choose them from? Yes?
Sure. You can go through the hymnal and say, okay, these are the ones for Advent. These are the ones for this season. And then these are the ones that are a little bit more generic. And then I thank God you can surf the web and say, okay, if I put in this topic, are there suggestions that other people can make? And I think that's super helpful every time. So it's a learning piece. Every single time you think, okay, I'm learning. I'm learning.
In all these years that you have been doing it, do you remember, do you have a favorite sermon that you wrote?
Um, I don't know if I have a favorite, but there are ones that click where you just think all the ideas, the points, it clicks. And when you look out, you realize you almost don't even know what you're saying. You feel like you're just kind of flying and it's working. And you look out at people and they're giving you something back, and you realize something you've said is clicking with that person, and you can see it in their eyes. That's the one where you think. There are others that are flat where you realize, oh, the energy is not there. I haven't said something that seemed to unlock something in somebody else. But there are others where you think, oh, you get a nod or you get a recognition or somebody says something where you think, hopefully you said something helpful. And I
Mhm,
think you can see it in people's eyes and their body language as
mhm,
they're listening, and hopefully you're just connecting with them in both a spiritual sense, but in a visual sense as you're looking out at them. I
mhm,
think you can see it's a same way with teaching. You can see if you've got a connection, and you
mhm,
can see immediately if you don't. If you've
mhm.
lost people, it's very apparent no matter who they are. Whether it's teaching kids or speaking to adults, if you've lost them, it's very apparent. And if you've got them, it's very apparent. So I think that for me is seeing somebody else having an aha moment is a thrill. And you think, okay, something clicked.
Now, it sounds even more challenging in a way than teaching because usually, well, teaching in a regular school, let's say, because
Mhm,
in a school you have a group of people more or less the same age,
mhm,
but in church you have all the ages.
mhm.
So how do you prepare? How do you write for everybody?
I think that's really hard, and you realize that it's a message might connect more with some people than others. In a church, you've got a wider variety, but then it tends to skew older. So then you're thinking about that. I've also filled in on campus for one of the chaplains there. That's another challenge when you're talking to 18 to 21-year-olds and you realize, these ideas aren't going to connect. They're not, they haven't had some of these experiences. And you think about some of the just difficult and challenging and traumatic things we all experience. And you hope they haven't had them at 18, but you realize, yes, by the time you reach 40 or 50, 60, yes, these things have happened. And then I also fill in at Longview Retirement Home and at, well, pre-pandemic Oak Hill. And then that's a whole nother world where it's just people, older adults with many different challenges. So each time I think the broadest is just a regular church, but then the others, you somehow really have to think more, just so closely about people at the very beginning, maybe of their lives and adventures, and people towards maybe the later stages of that, and not say something that's just disconnected from either one.
Mhm.
So I thought that was hard. The college students maybe were the hardest.
It sounds also like you have to do, or it involves a lot of performing.
Mhm.
Were you familiar with performing before audiences previous, previously to that, 2007?
My work is not just teaching, but at least before we came to Ithaca, I gave a lot of lectures. So yes, I had to do lots of public speaking, so I was familiar with that and very comfortable with that.
Mhm,
And if I hadn't been, that would not have been a successful
mhm,
experience. I think that is a key, and I don't do as much of that here at the Johnson as I did at my previous museum, but I've had to do a lot of it, and
mhm.
that just feels comfortable to me.
Oh, good. Do you keep all the sermons that you write?
Everyone and all the notes,
Everyone.
because of course the liturgical year always repeats,
Hmm.
and it's maybe not like you want to repeat the same thing, but if you go back and say, well, it's Advent again, it's Palm Sunday again, you can at least look at those notes and say, oh yes, that was a good point, or how can I look at that again and
Mhm,
change it and enhance it. But the year will always tell the same cycle of narratives and stories. So you can, yeah, I thought never throw anything away, because you can always reuse it and rethink it,
mhm.
and use that maybe as a foundation for the next cycle.
At the end of the service, do you get, so while you're giving the sermon, you see reactions from the people who are sitting down. But after the service, do they come to you? Do they also let you know, oh my God, that's resonated with me so deeply? Or,
Sometimes people do. The best thing is when somebody writes you later, because you figure
oh,
he's going to leave and say, yeah, fine. But if somebody writes you an email
mhm,
later, or a note,
mhm,
that just feels very thoughtful, and that they have thought about it. And if they say, I liked X or Y, or it was meaningful, that just means the world. That
mhm.
means the world. That's better than just, oh, that was great. That doesn't, that's a nice, encouraging pat on the back. But if somebody really points out an illustration or something that resonated with them, that just makes you feel wonderful.
Do you also keep all the notes and all the emails that the people send you?
I think I've kept written notes. I don't know if I've kept all the emails, but I definitely keep the written notes for inspiration, especially if it's somebody I admire,
Mhm,
who's also there was a chaplain, an amazing chaplain at Longview, who I heard several times, and I thought, oh, just absolutely inspiring. And I guess for me, that somebody I admired would say something encouraging about me in this field that is really their primary field and
Mhm,
not mine, that for me was just a real boon to the spirits.
mhm. Now, you mentioned that besides going to talk to in campus Cornell, it's
Mhm,
the campus is Cornell University.
mhm.
Before going, besides going to talk to students or going to the Longview to talk to the elderly, you've also had to um, talk in a friend's funeral. How did you do that?
I'd say it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. Yeah, she had asked me years ago, actually long before I said yes to this important question.
Mhm,
And I thought, well, of course I'll do it, but I don't think I thought that would ever happen. I thought, oh no, no, you're never gonna die.
mhm.
And then yeah, she got cancer and struggled with that. And then came the letter and said, do you remember what you promised me? And I thought, yes, I do. So, and then pretty quickly after that, I think she wrote me in January. Within 4 weeks, she was gone. And
Oh,
then
wow.
I thought, okay. She had said, oh, I have 6 months. And it was not 6 months, it wasn't even 6 weeks. And by then I thought, okay, I promise I've got to do this. And then that was a process of talking on the phone with her husband and with other friends of hers who I do know quite well, but trying to figure out how to honor her life,
Mhm,
in a way that was engaging and meaningful, but also somebody very funny and very vibrant. I thought, well, it's got to be meaningful, funny, vibrant,
mhm.
and somebody also who was not in any way, for shape or form religious.
Oh,
And
really?
that was even more challenging
Mhm,
to honor the fact that she was not religious, but also convey meaning
mhm.
and um, value. And for me, the sacredness, I would still call it, whether somebody's religious or not, to make that life sacred, but without adding the layer of organized religion. So I was trying to kind of, I suppose, thread the needle.
How long did it take you to write whatever
Um,
you were gonna say?
It's funny, I didn't have very much time before the service. I just had a couple weeks. I probably had notes and then maybe wrote it 10 times, just thinking, trying to refine,
Mhm,
thinking, oh, this is good, this is meaningful, this is funny. Um, and then trying to find a piece of poetry that would really convey her, um, trying to find other elements that would just speak to her character and her life. So I would say definitely one of the most challenging things I've ever done in my life.
and in that situation, as well as in church, do you always read everything you wrote, or do you write something and put it in front of you as a guide, and then you go with whatever comes to your mind and the text?
Yeah, more of a guide. But the other thing I do is I write it and I read it over and over and over again. I might read it 25 times out loud, all of it.
Why?
I want to get it in my muscle memory, and
Mm,
I want those words to be so familiar that I don't have to look at the guide,
mm,
and so familiar that if I need to improvise, I'll be able to do that or riff on them. I just want it absolutely in my head,
mhm,
and then I can improvise if I've got it just really strong. I don't want to ever read it or appear to be reading it, but I want it to be so familiar. And even
mhm,
if it's something lighter, or I want that absolutely to know how I would pace or deliver something funny, I want that in there too.
mhm,
Because I think we've all had experiences where you're talking and thinking, oh my God, what am I saying? And where am I going with this? You
mhm,
never ever want that. And the people that I asked for advice said, never ever, especially in a situation like that, just go off the top of your head. Don't do it. And don't allow other people to do it
mhm,
because your emotions take over and you're just wandering all over the place. And that you need to keep control.
mhm.
I think reading it over and over again helped me to know the points at which I would get emotional. I think, okay, I've got to keep reading this over and over and over until I don't get emotional at that part anymore,
So
or
you
I can somehow just turn it off.
so you don't start crying in the middle of the of the sermon. It's like, oh, I'm sorry.
Well,
Then there it goes.
I asked multiple ministers here how they do that. And again, their advice was just golden. They said, again, practice
Hmm.
and try to get the crying out of the way before you actually do it.
Hmm.
And just know you have to keep it together the best
Hmm.
you can. So something almost has to be switched off just for when you're doing it. You could cry afterwards and cry when you're practicing, but somehow you've got to um, just switch something off that allows you to do this very intense thing.
Of course, because you are the guiding force to the community who's listening to you.
It just is hard. I've only ever done one wedding, and that was hard in a joyful way because the
Mhm,
bride is three inches and ahead of you, and she's just crying like crazy, and so is the sweet groom. And I thought it was just so, end of life is one thing, and then the beginning of this new joyful life together, well, that's very emotional too, and you're looking at them and you're looking at their mothers crying. And that was hard in another way because I thought, I can't lose it while I'm
mhm,
administering these vows. So that was very beautiful and emotional, but
mhm.
also very hard not to cry. So,
Yeah.
but just you're just so honored that anybody would ask and entrust you with these really important life passages.
What about end of life? What do you do with a person when you're asked to go?
I've only gone twice, and the one, believe it or not, the person is still with us. They were in the departure time, but I just grabbed. It's funny. I asked my minister what to do. She said, you'll know when you get there. It was during the pandemic. Put on my mask and gown, all of that.
Mhm,
And I realized as soon as I got there, I thought, okay, this person's not going to be able to even hear me through the mask and the face shield and the machines next to their bed. So I thought, well, I'm still going to pray. And I realized the most important thing was just holding the person's hand.
mm,
That's the only thing they couldn't hear me, probably,
mhm,
I don't
mhm,
think, but they could feel that somebody, even with a glove,
mhm,
was holding their hand. And I thought, well, that's probably the most important thing.
mhm,
Not what I said, but just going there and squeezing somebody's hand
mhm.
and knowing they are present.
Kind
Um,
of saying you're not alone.
and the words, in a sense, I was worried about the words, and the words really don't even matter, in a
Mhm,
sense. The
mhm,
presence of the person, the squeezing of the hand, the reassuring of love, and depending on their faith orientation, what you can pray with them. But in a sense, I think the physical presence, that was the most important thing. When I realized that the machine chugging along next to this lady too, I thought between the mask and the machine, she can't hear a thing.
mhm,
So, but I was just honored to be asked to go.
mhm.
So I did.
What about humor? The use of humor in your sermons or in situations where it can be helpful. How do you manage that?
Yeah, people love that, and it is incredibly important.
Mhm,
Um, to not just tell a joke or something like that, but to observe things that are funny, that are
mhm,
peculiar, that are absurd. That to me is funny, not telling a joke. That's not funny.
mhm,
But finding the absurd in everyday life, that is funny. And then when you can weave that into your theme,
mhm,
I think that's something people enjoy. They enjoy your sense of humor, not a weird kind of setup thing, but
mhm,
something that you think is odd or funny or
mhm,
absurd.
mhm,
That always works. And I think people appreciate that. And I think sometimes when something is an intense subject, to break the sometimes the tension,
mhm.
to allow people to laugh at that service. The one with the people I asked for advice, my former minister said people need to really cry and really laugh. So
Mhm.
you've got to allow them to do both. They're emoting with their loss, but they really want to laugh too. And they want you to weave in, something funny about this person,
Mhm.
something that they said or did, or some story that will allow them to just let go and say, oh my God, I loved it when she did that. And
Mhm.
that, I think you needed both in equal measure,
Mhm.
you know, the laughter and the tears.
Carol, I'm seeing, so if you could put in words all the skills that you got to either learn or develop or master since 2007 up until now doing this kind of work, what would you say? Because I see so many things.
Gosh, the speaking part is essential. The
Mhm.
comfort with speaking, but somehow being able in a short period of time, in a 15 minutes, to say something, to make a tight structure with several points, with something you hope engaging and funny and meaningful. I think that's something I will keep trying to do forever. And I think that's the hardest piece, to be able to also, I don't know, improvise as you need to. And when
Mhm.
something odd happens in the service or somebody asks for a prayer request. And I think it's just somehow leading with confidence. And those are things, no matter how many times I do it, I'll be learning every single time,
Mhm.
what works and what works in what location and with what audience.
Mhm. I got to see Molly, your dog.
Mhm.
Did she get to go to your services ever, or
You know,
are
she is not. I don't think she's been to a couple church meetings. She hated those. Hated them. Very nervous, but I thought I don't like meetings either. I don't blame her. But no, she has not been. She'd be great in a service. She's done some volunteering, but no, she has not attended. She'd be a good visual aid. I
uh-huh.
think she would help. There used to be a couple of dogs who came regularly to Forest Home, a service dog and another dog, but no, she is not. She's quite spiritual, but has has not attended any of these. But I think she'd be a help. She'd be
Okay.
a big
Yeah,
help.
she looks like she would be a great addition.
Okay.
Okay, so now tell me a moment in your life when you decided that saying no was a much better idea.
Okay. No is a better. All right. I would say one thing I've learned about myself is when I do some kind of service or volunteer thing, something like that, being on a board, and I've been on several of them, I realize I'm much better with the person to person.
Hmm.
So the last time I was asked to renew on a board for a super worthy, wonderful cause, I just realized for Meals on Wheels, I thought I would be happy to deliver those meals. I would be happy to make those meals. I would be happy to visit with people. But I realized for me, the no comes with sitting with an amazing and very gifted group who is doing, rewriting the personnel manual or
Mhm.
making spreadsheets on the budget. That for me, that was a no. I thought that's not where I can best be of use.
Mhm.
For me, anything that'll put me in contact with people and
Mhm.
being able to connect with people, that's the yes. If it's just strategic planning about something else that it feels so divorced from
The face to
the actual need.
face. Mhm.
Yeah, that's where I think I'm best. And I think when I was asked to renew, I thought, I just can't do it. I just can't do it. I just felt like that was like pulling teeth for me to have to serve. And again, and I remember there were wonderful people on the board, absolutely terrific. But the doing part is that's what I need to be doing. The
Mhm.
thinking about doing, that's not, I don't think I serve that purpose well. So I
So,
rarely say no, but I said no to that.
and before saying no to that one, have you done this kind of work? Like, have you had several instances where you said yes without realizing that that didn't make you happy, that that was not your strength or something you enjoyed
Yes, yes.
several times?
With that board, I think I'd done it 3 years, and with another thing, I thought I had done it several times where I just thought, well, I'm much better at this than that, and I just, but one feels, I felt guilty, and I thought, oh, I should do it, and then I thought, no, I think it's better to, be used in the best way you can be, and to use your skills in the best manner that you can. So
So what made you realize that that's where you stand? Um, why this time you said no and not the other times? Like what had to happen inside of you or outside of you to come to that realization?
that's a great question. I think for me, I just realized certain things just made my heart sing. I thought, I'm happy to go to the nursing home. I'm thrilled to go to the jail. I'm thrilled to tutor. And I realized I was dragging myself to those meetings. And
Mhm.
the other things I thought, I couldn't wait to go to the soup kitchen. I've never ever had to push myself to do any of those other things. But this, I thought, I just realized I was pushing myself and dragging myself
Mhm.
to do it. And these other things were just complete joys that I
Mhm.
couldn't wait to do. And I thought, okay,
Mhm.
I need to do, I'm best used in areas where, you know, that quote says, your deep joy meets the world's deep need. That's where you're supposed to be,
Mhm.
not the thing where you're jamming the square peg into the round hole. So
Okay. You mentioned something about the jail, and I want to go there. But before I remember what I was going to ask you. So, for someone who's not, um, who doesn't know a lot about religion, what
mhm.
is the Methodist Church? So, for example, I was raised Catholic, but I'm not a practicing Catholic, and I certainly don't know so many things. And I know that there are different, and I don't even know what's the word, different ways of praying or different sects or different routes to go.
Oh,
What is the Methodist Church?
and that's, a mainstream Protestant denomination. Even within that denomination, there are very different streams. And right now, there is a big, yeah, I guess will eventually be a split between the more progressive wing and a more traditional wing. That
Mhm.
more progressive wing is very inclusive, very welcoming of LGBTQ, you know, so definitely, and wanting to make sure that there can be same-sex marriages, this kind of thing within that. So those two wings of
Mhm.
that church will eventually go their separate ways.
Okay.
Go their separate ways. But yes, and here in town, the Forest Home Chapel and St. Paul's are both inclusive, welcoming, very progressive, very, I think you'd say, liberal congregations.
Is part of that having a female minister, or is the conservative part, does the conservative part also is allowed to have female ministers?
I think the conservative part probably does have female
Okay.
ministers as well, but I don't. Here, needless to say, in Ithaca tends to be all the different congregations tend to be, pretty progressive.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying. And
Not an
now,
expert, but I'll try. Yeah.
so now, you mentioned the jail, but before, so you mentioned that you go to campus and at Cornell University, you go to Longview or places where elderly people live. You do well, you've done the funeral of your friend, you've done end of life and jail. What is that about? How did you end up doing that kind of service? And what is it that you do?
Yeah, jail was through Tompkins Learning Partners. which is an amazing literacy organization here in town. They had for a number of years active tutoring at the jail.
Mhm.
So tutors, they have ESL tutors, they have adult basic ed tutors. So you would go to the jail and help people who were preparing to take what is used to be called the GED or the task test, the high school equivalency test.
Okay.
So they had the equivalent of like BOCES classes at the jail.
Mhm.
So you would go every week and meet whoever your student was and work on, reading or social studies or writing.
One-on-one or with a group?
When I did it, it was one on one, and there was a BOCES teacher who had a group class, but it
Mhm.
depends how long people are there. You know,
What, um, why did you decide to do this? And
uh,
when did you start, or when was your first time?
oh, that's been a couple of years. I think I did it for 2 years, and then they changed their policy where they had tutors could only have their same sex students. So they
Mm.
wanted male tutors with male inmates and female with female. And that was a harder to match. There were many more men there than women. So it was
Mhm.
harder to get matched. And then they dropped the program. They're about to renew it and do a new training to get
Mhm.
tutors back in the jail. But that's something that I had done quite a bit before we moved to Ithaca,
Mhm.
tutoring in jails, and I just loved it, and I wanted to do it again when we got here. So that would just seem like a touchstone to renew something that I loved and thought would make me feel more at home here to do it once we got to Ithaca.
Now, so if you were trying to inspire someone to do that kind of work, because talking about going to jail to do work with people in jail seems kind of difficult, harsh, and not something very popular.
Mhm.
So if you were going to inspire someone to say yes to that kind of work, what would you say?
Oh, they just have to feel comfortable doing that, and they have to want to do it. I think that's the truth of anything that you take on. If you're going to tutor at the jail or go to a nursing home or go to wherever, you have to really want to do that thing and feel comfortable there and be able to express your care for whoever you're with and
Mhm.
not feel anxious, right? Whether it's the jail or the soup kitchen or the nursing home, you have to feel comfortable in yourself and
Mhm.
and be able to talk to whoever you're with and just express your care for them,
Mhm.
and I think it's just if you're not comfortable wherever it is, you shouldn't be there.
Mhm.
If you're not comfortable around elderly folks or people who are really ill or people with all kinds of issues, it's just you shouldn't be there. I think it's just you have to think, oh, I I want to be there and I really want to connect.
Okay. Very nice. Carol, would you say you're a person that says more yeses than nos, or more nos than yeses, or equally?
Definitely more yeses than nos.
Yes.
Very
Have you
seldom do I say no.
have you been like that all your life?
Um, I suppose, yeah. Yes, I suppose I have.
Why do you think that's the case?
I don't know. I don't think it's out of a sense of duty or anything like that. I think those yeses bring pleasure and growth and joy, um, and just excitement and connection too.
Mhm.
Very rarely have I ever regretted one.
Good. That's very nice. And final question. When you were a little kid,
Mhm.
did you ever imagine you would be doing what you're doing right now at this age? Was any of is any of what you do right now, no, was I don't know how to construct it. Anything that you're doing right now, was that part of your dreaming as a little kid of how you would be at this age?
No, I don't think that was.
No?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I certainly didn't think of any of the things that I'm doing now as a child. I don't think that was in my thinking. Don't know what. I think I wanted to be a writer, and that was kind of, but who knows what that meant as a child, or an archaeologist. I think those were my big things. But no, I don't think any of this entered my mind probably until college, and
Hmm.
then that's when I did my first serious tutoring, and I thought, and maybe first serious, volunteering, and then I think the seeds were planted then, but certainly not probably before then.
And this strong connection that you seem to have with human beings around you, in every single area of your life, did you have any inkling of that or any sense of that when you were a little kid?
I don't know that I did. And maybe that's something that just grew and grew. I mean, there were always wonderful family and friends and deep friendships. But I think for me now, working, I couldn't imagine not working with people every day and not
Mhm,
teaching every day.
mhm,
That's energizing. It's not enervating. That's the juice I need.
mhm.
And I'm always much happier when there are multiple classes and projects, and we have a dinner with folks and we do something else. That's energizing, and
Mhm.
that's thrilling.
Very nice. Okay, well, Carol, we've reached the end of our conversation, and the end of this exploration of your wonderful yes. Sounds lovely. Sounds like it has brought you so many gifts, and it has allowed you to give so many gifts to the people you've touched. Um, Interesting also to hear about your no and how sometimes it takes us time to realize that this is not the path for me. I better say no. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong at all, and it's just such a pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. Likewise. So now please remember to send me pictures, images, whatever is you would like to share with the audience, that have to do with your wonderful yes. And I'll add them to this interview, to the video at the end.
I certainly will.
Thank you so much for your time, Carol.
All right, you take care.
Bye. Have a good night.
You too. Bye bye.